to stand in front of your boss, which is also your dad.
Right.
Even now, when I'm thinking about it, you need a lot of, I don't know if courage, but you need the energy, to come and stand in front of someone and tell him, by the way, the business that you built your entire life and the things that you maybe thought that the next generation will take, from you is just not for me.
That's Shahar Plinner describing one of the most difficult conversations of his life. But it's the scariest moments that are so often most transformative in the lives of entrepreneurs. And that conversation with his father set Shahar on a path from the family business in Israel to Seattle, where he'd eventually build not one, but two successful businesses, including his current company, Formations, a SaaS FinTech company that's revolutionizing financial services for solo entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Aaron Burnett, and this is Shahar's story on Moments That Matter from EO Seattle.
So I'm Israeli.
Yeah.
Grew up in the neighborhood of the Middle East. Born to a middle class, family. Actually, on the way here, I was thinking about how to introduce kind of my story. I said, hey, yeah, I grew up in an entrepreneurial home. My dad had kind of his own business. And then when I started kind of thinking about the word entrepreneur, I said, actually, my dad was not an entrepreneur. He was not. He actually, when I think about it, he actually replaced his day job. He was working in an insurance company. He just replaced his day job with an office that he owns. It haven't felt like the definition of what I believe entrepreneur, is. And again, there's probably more than one definition, but, he was working every day from 8 a.m. in the morning to 8 p.m. at night. He was working Saturdays. He had zero flexibility. He didn't take any vacations. We didn't have, a boat or, a vacation home. Our vacations were kind of, almost like planned based on, school or based on some, seasonality. While my parents, had like a nice portfolio of real estate at the end, it's mainly were my mom, decision. He was kind of, a little bit kind of, not against, but he was not in favor. So when I thought about kind of, to describe kind of the home that I grew up in, it wasn't an entrepreneurial, even when I have two older brothers, and even when they kind of come to the decision of the end of their high school and college, he advised them to study law, because you need an occupation. Go be an attorney, go be, an accountant. I'm the youngest out of three. So, a little bit more free spirit, got a lot of freedom from my parents. There was a big difference, big age gap between my brothers and myself, 11 years. So I kind of, grew up by myself, I'm very independent. When I told my parents I'm going to study, just business school, my dad was like, business, it's not an occupation, So when I kind of start thinking about the conversation today, it came to me that while, my dad was self-employed, he was working for himself, he had kind of, the ability to control his kind of work-life balance. It was never balanced, it was, till today, he's 85 and he's in a good health. Still what keep him in a way young, is being around the grandkids and go to work. This is what still keep him kind of super energized, around, try to solve those complicated insurance, cases and bring his 65 years of expertise. But in a way, it never felt, an entrepreneurial. There was never to pursue another business opportunity. There was never kind of, to try and improve the business. The business, since I know the business, was very flat, never grew in the number of employees. Revenue was kind of the same. So I know it was funny kind of to came into a realization on the way here from Kirkland to Ballard.
Did you know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur even as you went to business school?
I knew that I am not employable. Like, I don't have a story that,
I only recently became unemployed.
Didn't have a story. No, I didn't have like a lemonade stand out of my home. I was always independent, always, work from really young age. If it was in the local pizza store, it was, I was starting just as a, counter front, kind of, to sell pizza. It took them, a couple of months to understand that I can control the entire operation end to end, and the owners disappeared, just took off, after a couple of months. And it was mine in a way. At the age of 16, I own kind of, opening and closing, and it became kind of my hub. for everybody kind of come, and it was super successful operation. But I knew that I would want to work in a way for myself. I knew that I'm curious enough to discover kind of what my capabilities, what I'm good at. There was a discussion about what you're a genius, which again came a little bit later, kind of into my career, to understand like what I'm really great on doing, or what's my purpose, in that world. But in a way, again, not a kind of a conventional, entrepreneurial journey. It came kind of almost as a way of how life, in a way, led me kind of to make some decisions that, at the end of the day, led me to who I am, today.
And so what led you to who you are today?
So I think one decision was that I don't want to be part of the family business. Like, this was really obvious. As a family-owned kind of business, you've been pulled into the business if you want or not. You hear the discussion about the business all day long. It can be on dinner on Friday.
Right.
It can be, how do you tell the story of the family? It can be kind of the involvement of everybody, my brothers, my mom, my dad. And as I grew up and started making kind of my own beliefs and decisions, I knew that my time at the family-owned business is temporary. I just need the right kind of, timing to let that go. And that timing came around, I know, March of 2005. There was a couple of events. One, again, as an Israeli, you serve in the army, and, I served 3 years in a combat unit between, 95 to 98. After that, you are on reserve. So you spend probably between 4 to 6 weeks, in reserve, different tasks. Usually, again, as you get aging, you're less and less in the combat, area. You're more support, or more kind of, in some civil tasks. And in March of 2005, I was assigned for about 4 weeks just to spend time with my unit. It was fun time. But you have a lot of time to think. And I think this is the time that I kind of realized that that's it. Like, it's not for me anymore. Like, I was sad. I was physically and mentally not in shape. I started having some severe migraines, and my behavior was, again, asking Ortal, my wife today, we've been a long time together. Kind of, she noticed like that I'm not happy, and there was a discussion about what else is possible. And I think the one else possible was first to get the courage to stand in front of your boss, which is also your dad.
Right.
Even now, when I'm thinking about it, you need a lot of, I don't know if courage, but you need the energy, to come and stand in front of someone and tell him, by the way, the business that you built your entire life, and the things that you maybe thought that the next generation will take, from you, is just not for me. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do next, but I just know that, today is my last day.
Yeah.
And that's it. But what I appreciate about my dad, that, he has a way how to separate, I think when you're in the business, it's very hard. But the second that I let him know that it's my last day, I think over a second, it turned off kind of the boss hat and become my dad. While I think he was, in a way, upset from a business perspective, I think he was proud to the fact that, someone can stand strong in front of him and say, by the way, this is not for me. I'm not sure what's next,
Right.
but I know that this is the end of that chapter.
Before we continue, I want to tell you about the community that made this podcast possible. The Seattle chapter of EO, that's Entrepreneurs Organization, is where I've met incredible business leaders like Shahar. It's not networking, it's not selling to each other, it's real entrepreneurs sharing real challenges and solutions. If you have a business that does at least $1 million a year in revenue, and you're curious about joining a community that gets what you're going through, check out EOCF.
It was a great time, by the way. It was May of 2005. It was, in a way, wedding season for all of our friends. It's kind of the age, everybody's getting married. Some of our friends already have like a first kid. So everybody's around. May to, July, before, summer is heavy in Israel. It's really hot and humid. May to July, really nice. Everybody's on the beach having some fun. So it was a great time kind of to re-energize. And actually out of the blue came an opportunity to interview for an Israeli guy that moved to the US, lived in Bethesda, Maryland, and had 12 tax practices in the US. And his kind of theme was, I'm building a tax practice around Israelis in the US. So I'm going into hubs where there is a lot of Israelis relocated. That was, end of 2000, mid of 2005. I didn't know anything then, not on the US tax system, and nor I had an experience speaking in English. While you study English from second grade all the way to end of high school, it's not really practical English. Like Ortal, my wife, she worked in a tech company once she graduates. So it was emails and communication and stuff that you need to exercise their English. I never had to speak casual, English. There was an immediate click for me with that specific person. And it was a click for me with the US tax system. It was funny. Again, you speak about this, embrace your genius. And again, just to understand what are you good at. And I'm one of those weirdos, an Israeli guy from a small city, outside Tel Aviv, that can see the US tax system. I can just see it. I'm the metrics, and it's become pretty obvious that this is kind of my next journey. I become more and more passionate to understand the code, but I also understand how to, in a way, loop all the code, how to understand how to connect few things together that will allow someone to save money.
Sure.
And I think the interesting part, kind of that I look back between taxes and the insurance, business, is that both of them you serve. I'm a servant at the end of the day. I'm a service provider. I enjoy the human connection. I enjoy, leading people into some greatness or allow them to unlock some complex situation. And insurance, it's been the business that we've been in, it was loss adjusters. So usually it comes through, when the policy is breached, you had a theft, you have a flood, you had a burglary, you had a fire. You need to actually sue, the insurance company to get some money back. And as the adjuster, you're always the bad guy, always, because you're in between the insurance company and the customer. The insurance company never want to pay. Everybody is kind of, trying to manipulate the insurance company. The policy is limited to what you can pay back, and you always being blamed to be the bad guy. In taxes, you're the good guy. You're in between the government, the IRS, and we're always saying that, fortunately, the IRS doesn't have a marketing department. So it depends on us, the individual that understand, to share the message. And the message is usually a positive message. It's about how we can make you to unlock some interesting financial concept that at the end of the day will help you to save more money or keep more money in your pocket. So actually, when you understand the concept of, to be a tax expert and how the system works, you become the good guy. You become a very interesting persona to speak to, because most people don't even understand taxation. So you go into a room and you start networking, you start saying, what do you do? Everybody wants to understand the secrets, of the IRS, almost like the magician, So this was a great kind of, position to be in. And I felt that, moving from being kind of the bad guy in an industry that I really cannot connect to, into being the good guy in an industry that is super complicated and people kind of almost by default have to interact with, it's a great natural move.
So you landed this job. Did you stay in Israel, or was that what brought you to the US?
This is what brought me to the US.
Okay.
So Ortal and I have been dating, since 1999. So we've been dating about 6 years before that transition. And we knew that for us to move as a couple to the US, we need to get married, So, all right, so let's arrange a wedding. We knew that we'll have to land in the US November, December, maybe January, because we're heading into tax season. So we arranged a beautiful wedding, September of 2005. I got married. It was kind of, also an opportunity to see everybody and in a way say goodbye. We never knew that journey will take us 20 years later still, to be here in Seattle, family of 3 kids and, a couple of business behind us. But back then it was a journey, it was nothing to lose. We are a young couple, no kids. Let's, pack a couple of suitcases and let's move to the US. The decision to move to Seattle was while again, there was like multiple branches around the US. There was New York, Chicago, Colorado, Silicon Valley, San Diego, LA. There was that small office that they just purchased in Seattle, early 2005. The decision that they led us to land here was have a family in Bellevue, have an aunt and a couple of cousins that I never met. I met them probably once. They came to visit, Israel, I don't know, 40 years ago. I was a young kid. And then I was curious about how that will be landing in a kind of a foreign land, but have maybe the support of the family, which led to be probably one of the best decisions. I'm not sure who was happier, us or Tal and I, knowing that there is kind of an immediate family that can help us to understand more of the area and understand, overall the US culture and how to be embedded here, or they've been so excited about there's an immediate family for the first time actually living next door. So it was a pretty quick decision. Again, a quick, turnaround, 6 months from, the introduction to the world of taxation. We landed in November of 2005 in Bethesda, Maryland. This is kind of where the headquarters, quick arrangement of Social Security, kind of understanding kind of where do you land, just to get kind of a little bit overview on the company. And that's it, a ticket to Kirkland, Washington. And I don't know, kind of, let's discover, let's see what's kind of, let's start that journey. There was very, very little known at the time. Then known, it was kind of, marching into like a experience that you have no clue what you're going to kind of land on.
How long did you work for this company?
So I worked for that in, 2006 all the way to 2009. Had to kind of, rearrange myself in the US. And the individual that actually kind of the angel, that helped me with my immigration, all of my paperwork, Davis Bay, turned to be also an EO member. 5 years later, he will be the one that will introduce me to the EO chapter. He was just waiting, for me to grow my own business to the $1 million and qualify. And he was checking on me he helped me again with the visa, with transfer the visa into again the entity, and then help us, to get into the green card process, and then, to the citizenship. He was checking on us every while. And the second that basically I confirmed with him that, the consulting business, GPL, that we built kind of just crossed, the $1 million, he said, all right, you already go meet the board. And that was, again, we're jumping ahead, but it was early 2014, so now kind of, getting into my 11, 12 years in EO, which feels almost like it's kind of yesterday.
And were you aware of EO during the previous years? Did you know that there was this invitation waiting? If you crossed the $1 million threshold, that you might hear more about EO, you might be invited in?
No, when you ask me today, what's EO for me, I think it's that missing part back then that was the part that was so missing for me back then. The first 5 years of running, kind of incorporating GPL Tax and Accounting, we start the journey in around November, December of 2009. We end up, selling the business in August of 2022. But the first 5 years, until I got to know EO, it was very obvious that I'm missing like a major part of my entrepreneurial kind of journey. And only when I literally met, my first Forum 7, still, Forum 7, it's the first time, literally in the first meeting that I kind of had some level of relief, because I knew I found my people. And this was something that I was missing so much, at the beginning of the journey. Someone that can, that we can share experiences, someone that can tell me that I don't need to explore everything kind of by myself. I also believe that there are no shortcuts. And the journey that I had to kind of do by myself led to the point that I was ready for that EO experience.
Yeah. You came to EO because you felt lonely as an entrepreneur. What has EO given you?
Tax and accounting is very compelling offering. So while you're not allowed to do, or solicit or do business within EO, but you're allowed to tell people what you do. Again, by nature, I just attract some traction, from small, medium businesses that were so curious to understand kind of what their tax position is and how to unlock their level of complexity. So even by not soliciting business out of EO, I probably got 10x, 15x, 20x a year, return on my dues. It was not the intention, but it was a nice byproduct, some growth, out of the EO chapter. So this came, pretty naturally. Friendships. It walks with me, till today. People that become really good friends, families that will become kind of, family friends, can be both in the US and outside US. So as an international, my practice was specializes in international tax, so all of the nuance that, require from people to assess foreign operation to report in the US. EO as a global organization allow me kind of, to reach out to people outside the US, everywhere that we've been doing business. It was, when we opened our first office in Sri Lanka, and have the ability to speak to some EO Sri Lanka, attorneys, accountants, business owner to understand a little bit more of the culture. It's funny, I have a larger organization in operation in Sri Lanka. I've never been there yet. So again, potentially this year, but getting someone that can help me understand unbiased, what's going on was really helpful. Again, EO in Israel was a big one. It's a young chapter that just started shortly after I joined EO here. It was fascinating kind of to speak about it with my entrepreneur Israeli friends and bring them into the EO chapter and see them in a way growing and getting kind of the values that I'm getting. I was involved in EO Accelerator, and it was amazing kind of to go to the basic of cash day and strategy day and be a student of the journey, but also lead, 4 amazing ladies. 3 of them graduate, and become EO members. So just to see, it's almost like, the chapter of, I don't know, it's kids, that you see them growing and take their business from $200,000-300,000 into crossing the million and allow them to join the chapter.
Yeah.
But again, I'm part of my EO accounting that I have 30 other CEO of accounting firms, EO members around the nation that we speak about our industry and get a little bit more into their kind of mindset. And 3-4 years ago, I joined EO SaaS. As I moved from GPL as a consulting business, I was fascinating kind of to try kind of more of the venture-backed world, the product world, just more of the tech kind of environment. So I took myself into the EO SaaS. Again, as a SaaS forum, we have 700-800 entrepreneurs that specializes kind of, in that business operation, which is very different than, running a service, professional services operation.
When you connect with other EO members, particularly around the world, what unites them? Do you find that there's a common perspective, a common approach, or do you find a lot of diversity in approach?
So while I find diversity and I enjoy the diversity, when you use the EO kind of code name, it's unbelievable how the door is open faster. I can reach out to someone on LinkedIn, or I can have a cold outreach, or someone make a warm introduction to an entrepreneur, and it takes maybe a second kind of for the warm up or the, the verification or the check. I check you, you check me.
Right.
And when you wave, with your EO card, all of that pre kind of engagement is almost like disappear over a second, and you can immediately go into like, not sure marriage, but a very meaningful relationship. You don't need to explain yourself too much. Almost like, EO is doing the work to filter and to qualify the individuals.
Right.
Once you're in the organization, you kind of, taking for granted that if you're talking to another EO member, we share the same ethical values. We share some of the identity of why, EO is such a big deal. Then I think the diversity comes. Then each one of us bring, something unique as an individual to the table.
Right.
But the EO card is like, it's amazing kind of, sometimes now it's on my LinkedIn account and I'm using it like more freely. But before it was kind of, if it was a hidden and it was hard to get to someone, and then you pull the card and then boom, why didn't you say before? So So it's like, what has changed?
Yeah.
Nothing is the same. Me asking you the same. But again, I think that that card is just a super powerful one.
So you started Formations in 2022?
No, we started actually in 2020.
Oh, okay.
So we are a COVID baby.
All right.
We are March of 2020.
Yeah.
So in around February of 2019, I've been experimenting with a Balance Monkey. Balance Monkey was the first name of Formations.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is that monkeys can balance financials for self-employed. It's just super easy and simple financial profile. Once we went into the venture world and we started raising money, investors didn't like the money monkey kind of relationship.
Sure.
So we had to go through a rebranding exercise. But around February of 2019, I've been experimenting for about 3 years with the idea of cloud accounting, cloud computing, banking as a service, things, FinTech start become a thing. And we start connecting, just simple. What happened if I'm connecting, my LLC to a separate banking, filing as an S Corp, do bookkeeping live, provide financial statements, potentially add some benefit or retirement plan, and let's see if it's resonate, with some service providers. And it was a big deal. It was, to share the message, and the message was in a way very clear to understand for that specific segment. 3 years later, by February of 2019, I had enough courage, to wrap kind of my concept, went to the Bay Area, and keep in mind that in GPL, we had a segment that we took care of tech companies. We did their bookkeeping, their tax, their HR. So I had like about 150, founders, CEOs that I could kind of run some ideas. So I picked a couple of that I really trust their mindset or their thought leadership. And they said, hey, you need to go and see that specific person in the Bay Area. He will give you some confirmation. And I got the confirmation. I got the confirmation that we have a great idea. I think what's funny also about that story is that it's a VC of one person. Today, he controls probably $3 to $4 billion under asset. He's the one decision maker, which means if he likes you, he will write you $100 million check. Like, it's not just a seed fund money of $100,000 angel money. This is like, VC of one person. We actually liked each other. And then his comment was, while you build a really successful business and you try to exit from as a service provider, the world of product is something really different. And I only invest in serial entrepreneurs. So come back with your second, venture. But for that one, I will pass. But I can tell you that the guy that was here before you is one of the talented CTOs in the Bay Area. But his idea is the shit. So while I will invest in him, because he's a serial, CTO,
sure,
I would never invest in his idea. But if your idea and him will come together, something beautiful can be created.
Yeah.
And immediately, I remember, I was in Cafe Venezia in Palo Alto, and then I went down the stairs. He was sitting kind of on the second floor. And before I got into my Uber, I got an email introduction. And Oren, the VC guy, said, hey, Shahar, meet Ran. He's one of the, talented CTO. Ran, meet Shahar. I think this is the idea that you need to kind of, go after. I called Ran, out of the blue. I don't know him. We set a meeting for the following day. We met for about 4 hours. I flew back home from Silicon Valley to Seattle. When I landed, I already had like a 6-page product, marketing, and some framework of what, Formations is. Like, he already processed, my idea, again, the Balance Monkey idea, and put it in something that I could not describe better in a 6-pager.
Right.
We started dancing together. It was kind of a pretty interesting dynamic. Was fascinating, again, with the technology world. But then 5 months later, he got a proposal that he could not refuse. He became kind of a CTO of a startup that went to IPO. Mm-hmm. But the relationship was there. That's it. It's a friendship for life. So we stayed in touch. 6 years later, he's one of our advisory and consultant. Meet with Uri, my co-founder, and myself. Every Friday we probably speak, 3-4 times, during the week, and then we have kind of a, 2-on-1 every Friday to close the week. So Ran was a huge supporter of that kind of venture. But for me, that's it. It was, as an entrepreneur, that was my shiny object. I could not turn off, that 6 page. The fact that, one of the most respectful VC in the Bay Area said, the idea, I can sign off on that. I could not turn off the fact that now I have one of the, most talented CTO, in my corner. And for me, it was just, what's the right timing now, to depart from a business that, been my whole life. And it took me all the way until probably July, August of 2019, until I basically rearranged, the practice, brought the CEO, a couple of directors, let my second in command kind of take over. But that's it. I took a small space from Peter Chi, another EO member, Think Space in Redmond. I took a room probably smaller than that room. I was always had this, crazy kind of, idea to put all of these sticky notes, on the wall.
Yeah.
So first thing, I went to Office Depot and purchased tons of sticky notes, and I just put sticky notes all over the wall. I purchased some markers, and I said, all right, now it looks like a room of an entrepreneur.
That's fantastic.
I purchased like a small whiteboard on wheels that I can move between. And there was one chair. And this is where I spent my entire summer of 2019. Literally every day, I was going into this empty office and slowly, start filling out
the
sticky notes.
I don't know if you noticed what passed when you came in, a rolling whiteboard with sticky notes.
Yeah. I don't know. It was like when I envisioned kind of the world of the creation of the ideation and the idea, it felt like a scene from a movie. So I said, let me try to bring some of my dream. I replaced my dress shirt with a t-shirt. I replaced my dress shoes with a flip-flops. It was summer in Seattle, shorts. I replaced the walls with, again, sticky notes. And I start download, everything from that 6-page idea into kind of something way more meaningful. And then piece by piece, start bringing everything together. I think the changing point for me was the summer we went back to Tel Aviv. I already had in my idea, kind of in my mind, who do I want kind of to be my number two? And I think that one of the lessons that I learned, is that integrator, that operator, that number two, the one that will put your vision into, work papers, is probably the most important function, again, for that visionary, someone that, can wave with his hands, can speak clearly, not all the time, kind of the idea, and then have someone that is a little bit more process oriented, that can process all of that and then download that on something that we can share with other people. Uri, my co-founder today, is a good friend, family friend. He moved to Seattle, same kind of 2007. His wife grew up in Mercer Island. So she went on a vacation in Israel and recruit him. He came and they got married and he was here. But we took very different path. While, family friends and our kids now the same age and kind of everybody's kind of one big kumbaya, big family. He went into the startup world, into marketing and operation for few of kind of marketing automation and SEO, kind of the early industry kind of in Seattle. So he got way more into the startup world, and I was always curious about him. And now I know that he was always curious about me because I was the crazy entrepreneur in a way, having his own business, coming with all of those stories, sky's the limit, whatever you want, office in Tel Aviv, office in Sri Lanka, office in the Bay Area, team that grow every year 30, 40%. So there was always kind of the interest to be kind of and work together. So Uri was involved in the Balance Monkey kind of story, but not until I had all of my kind of vision together, I couldn't speak about it in a smart way. And then in August of 2019, when we went back to Israel, we sat on the beach. And I remember then, and I download on him kind of, hey, this is what's going on. And I really, 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 really want you to come and be my number two. Took him 5 seconds to say yes. Karen and Uri went back to Israel for a couple of years to see if this is a path that they want kind of to pursue. Israel is not an easy country to kind of to relocate or to live. Again, the weather, the political climate, the roughness, of the people. So for Karen, it was kind of a great opportunity to say, actually, this is a great time for you to go back. So in a way, Ortal, my wife, and me, we ambush Uri because everybody kind of, start talking around him about this is a great time to come back. Mm-hmm. And Shahar, if you push hard enough about, this business opportunity, it will be kind of, you'll be successful.
Sure.
So there was kind of the discussion around it. And then at the beginning, it was not easy because it took them a while to arrange kind of the move back. And then March of 2020, COVID hit and everything was closed. So in a way, the beginning of September, he was in the US. October, I came back to Tel Aviv. November, he came to the US. December, I went to Tel Aviv. And then January, was the last time that he came to the US. February, I went to Tel Aviv and I came back home February 28th, landed in CTEC, and that's it.
Right.
The following day, the sky closed. And then March 1st, we signed our first lease agreement. We move into a new office. Congratulations, Formations has a new office in Kirkland, and it's COVID.
A new empty office.
Empty office of one.
Yeah.
So I continued to go to the office. And then as we start kind of growing, people start showing up. At the end of the day, Uri moved with the family around, I think, July of August. They moved permanently, back to the US. And, this is where things start kind of, kicking off for us. COVID was an interesting times. It was the main segment that Formations decided to go after was real estate agents. Mm-hmm. The promise of Formations was, I wanted to stay in tax. I want to stay in tax and accounting. I want to create some experience, which is, I call it today, liberation and correction. Mm-hmm. The liberation was, I had to go away from customers. I couldn't do it anymore. At the peak of GPL, we had about close to 3,000 customers. I knew them all. They knew me all. Everybody wanted me. There's so much of me, that you can share when 3,000 people want you during tax season.
Right.
It's just a lot. So I needed kind of that buffer. How can I hide behind either a better operation or by the product? So I have to free myself from, being attached to so many customers. And then the correction is that I felt that there were so many mistakes, building my first business, that I fortunate to get a second chance to build something way more innovative, way more profitable, and maybe with a different business structure. So the entire Formations, operation was built over a niche of almost like an ICP, ideal customer profile,
right,
of very defined, a successful real estate agent. But then COVID happened, March of 2020. There's no real estate that can be sold. Everybody's home, nothing is moving. But looking back, real estate was one of the industries that bounced back probably the fastest. Mm-hmm. They start doing showings over Zoom or over Teams, and they start closing deals remote. And they found ways how to kind of bring, the industry back. And for us to gain customers, we did a lot of education and awareness. So it was lunch and learn. So I had to go to real estate offices, in Windermere or Compass or EXP or Berkshire Hathaway. And now when everybody moved to Zoom, we discovered the email to webinar. So now I can, share a message to 2,000 real estate agents, which I'm not geographically, bind to any, I'm not restricted, and then get 200, 300, 400 real estate agents.
Right.
Hear my message about why a real estate agents need to be an S Corp. How do you take those lemons and make them, a lemonade? This was a great lemonade. Email to webinar is what, help Formations to kind of take off.
Tell me about Formations today.
So Formations today, it's a SaaS vertical, still venture-backed startup that solve for the back office tax and accounting needs for what you call business of one, full-time self-employed, one of the largest segment of the workforce, 4.5 million full-time self-employed. So we're going after the career-driven self-employed, basically usually individuals that are great selling something, real estate, insurance, financial advisor, plumber, electrician, fractional CFO, CMO, CTO, want to work for themselves, do not have a need to grow large operation, don't want to hire more employees. Over time, what you see is basically that they just increase either their pricing or their value proposition so they can make more out of the same kind of hours or the same kind of pool. Same in real estate. Again, you start with selling, houses for $450,000. And once you gain kind of, more of the traction, you can sell homes for $1 million, $2 million. So in a way, it's the same work, but then instead of getting a commission of, $12,000, you're getting a commission of 40,000. So as you continue to grow, as a professional, you sometimes forget, to update your back office operation. You forget that now you outgrow your existing structure. Maybe a sole prop is no longer enough and you need to move into a single member LLC. Maybe a single member LLC is not enough. Maybe it's time to explore S Corp. What is an S Corp? How do I operate it? What is the 401k? How do I pay my kids? How do I budget? What can I expense? What I could not? There's a lot of awareness and education that is missing. We feel that niche of awareness. We start by bringing a lot of easy content to consume. Something else that is working with me for many, many years is my accent. It's an area of fear, uncertainty, doubt for me. Again, I don't have, your Polish accent that I'm so jealous. And also my vocabulary, is limited. While I'm trying to, sound sophisticated, at the end of the day, English is my second language. I'm only speaking English, for the last, in a way, 20 years.
Sure.
It serves as an advantage.
Right.
Because now I can share a very complicated idea, taxes, in a very simple words. So I think this was kind of my message to my team. My message was, how do we democratize that entire operation to a segment that doesn't have the patience, nor the time to learn, or the appetite to become an expert, but how do we bring enough of that content that will make them to think or to stop and rethink or to learn and unlearn? Because we're all bringing some biases that we saw, again, from family, from parents about relationship with money, relationship with taxes. So people have a fucked up relationship with money, and you carry those fucked up relationship with money as a kid, as an adult, as part of your marriage, as part of your, partnership. Now your wife or significant other is coming with her fucked up, relationship with money and become a clusterfuck of like, what's the best way, to manage money. And now when you add kind of the tax aspect on that, there is a lot of kind of uncertainty, what you can do, what you cannot do. We're always saying that financial distress is one of these distress that, can cause sickness and can cause so much mental issues. And because again, the fear, I'm going to lose my home, I'm going to lose my kids, I'm going to lose my car, I'm going to lose my retirement, I'm ashamed, I'm embarrassed, everybody around me is so successful. I'm the one that cannot pull the trigger on how to make money. So the idea was, how do we make people feel really comfortable around the subject so they're willing in a way to adopt and learn and bring some changes into their life.
And so you provide very clear education to demystify finance and tax, and then you're delivering back office services to support solo entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And so how many clients do you have today?
So right now we're serving close to 1,200 customers.
Okay.
90% of them still in the real estate market. We expand a little bit more the services around real estate. So we're serving real estate agents, and now we're serving kind of mid-tier real estate teams and brokerages, solutions to real estate investors, people that invest in long-term, short-term. Airbnb become a thing. How do you deal with short-term rental? How do you deal with, again, 2008, the subprime and tons of foreclosures, and people are losing basically their housing. How do you make up out of that? Tons of cancellation of debt, but now there's a new industry, the wholesale, and kind of on the distressed property and buying asset out of the banks, do some fix and flip become, a thing. So how do you respond to that? It's very different than buy and hold tax treatment versus short-term versus flip or construction or investment. So we become an expert on that, because we know that real estate agents feel really comfortable to put the retirement, in some rental management instead of money in the market. Because again, I can buy and sell properties all day long. I can identify, a property that can be a great investment opportunity. So we increased kind of, our footprint, and then start providing cost segregation, which is a way to accelerate a depreciation on a rental property, 1031 exchanges, things that basically real estate agents need. So it become almost like a full service. But on a nutshell, what we also discovered is that a financial of self-employed is kind of the same regardless to your industry, which means I can put in front of you a P&L and a balance sheet,
Right.
Of a self-employed. If it's a financial advisor, if it's a fractional CMO, if it's a real estate agent or marketing consultant, you won't know who is who, because there's 90% of it is very same. We can automate that 90% of the journey. So you don't need to kind of, waste time on dealing with your bookkeeper, separate from your CPA, separate from your financial advisor, separate from your, AR, AP, or someone that manage your return operation. We can definitely incorporate everything under one roof. And because we build technology, we can, give it in a very affordable price. We can bring on top of the awareness, the execution. And I think what's missing, or what we identify it's missing in what we call the old world or the CPA, you can find great accountants out there. Then you can go and they will be more than just the form filler. They will give you an advice, say, hey, Aaron, with your kids and with your wife and with your asset and with whatever you have, we advise you to do 1, 2, 3 and 4, 5, 6. By the way, good luck. And we'll see you either next quarter, and let me know if everything I can do for you.
Right.
And you go out and you thought that you got it, and then you just lost it because it's a new language and you're not sure where to start. And we found out that in a way that people are missing out for the lack of the execution. So what Formations is trying to do is also to close that gap. Means, hey, I need you, next week to have a 401k. This is the one thing that I need you, because you have that enough cash flow that we need to put that $23,000, $23,500, this year into the 401k. And by the way, agree? Great. Can I do it for you? Great. And now I'm doing it for you. So now I'm contacting my 401k TPA, the third-party administrator, and I'm connecting with your financial institution, Fidelity, and 3 days later, there's $23,500 inside your bank account. Because I can connect everything from FinTech between, again, your banking to your payroll, to your financial institution. Everything can speak today. And I think this is the power of Formations. The ability to integrate, your back office in a click of a button, so everything will be seamless. So you don't need to waste time on commodity or an execution.
You think of a time when EO has really delivered for you, either in a moment of triumph, in a moment of crisis.
So 2 weeks ago, I brought a problem into my forum. We started kind of a small business operation to test the concept, if we can deliver the same, value just for high net individuals on the 1040 side, more on the personal tax. And I have a business partner out of New York. And then we've been kind of running the operation over a handshake, for the last couple of years, just to see if there's anything, meaningful out of that. After a couple of years, that we saw that there is some business operation, we stopped for a second and we said, all right, it's time kind of to put things a little bit more formally. And then he went back into some discussion that we had 2 years ago, that it was just a dream. And I kind of reflect on the reality, and there was a difference. There was a gap between what we felt, equal and amicable, kind of to set that operating agreement between us. And literally, I walked like for 3 weeks, confused, depressed. He could feel it. I felt that there's something here not fair. And my emotions were all over. The emotions were like, I don't care anymore. You can take the business. Let me just walk away. I have enough on my plate. Let me take off, all the way to hell no. This is like a 50-50 operation. This is, I came a little bit more kind of strong, but the emotions were like moving all day long. And I decided to bring that, business problem to forum. And it was kind of a quick, kind of light round of discussion with forum. After 30 minutes or less, in a way, I got it all resolved. It was amazing. It was like, 3 weeks of constant, frustration that came to an end with my forum mates, sharing experiences, maybe going a little bit more on the non-gestalt, kind of discussion, which is fine. Again, if it's all open and you're ready to get some advice, from forum, or what, walking in my shoes, or what would you do if you were me? I got, that solved. One, I felt really well. It was like immediately like a relief. And then it allowed me literally the following day to reconnect, with my business partner and, get into like an immediate agreement, that satisfied the both of us. I don't think there's a small thing, in the life of the entrepreneur. I think everything, you should never over-index on stuff, because again, we see so much and we experiment and experience so much. But the other day, those things that you're stuck with, that you cannot move on, EO, it's almost like a valve of relief, of pressure.
You've collected friends throughout your life, and you have close family. Why were you able to resolve this issue in forum in a way that you couldn't resolve it with someone else who is close to you?
There's no one in my world that can solve such problems, in my opinion, than my people. This is a problem for my people. This is a problem that, I'm sharing everything with Ortal, with my wife, and she can be kind of, she's very reasonable, and she's showing me some blind spot, but still, she could not, get to that resolution. Most of my friends, again, if there are W-2 employees or people that are, not involved in business operation, their experiences based on my past experience, none of that is actually can be related to the solution that I need. And I don't know, I've been in EO so long, in a way I know what type of problems, Ortal can help me solve, what type of problems sometimes my kids will allow me, because I'm running kind of some ideas on an 8 years old that doesn't have too much of biases or filter, or I'm running it on a 16 years or 15 years old that has their own belief in the world today. But I knew when I had the feeling that I'm carry kind of that frustration and unsolvable business problem for so long, I was confident, that forum will help me to solve it. I was shocked if the forum could not help me, solve it.
Yeah. What do you want people to know about you?
I'm not giving up easily. I'm pretty stubborn once, I believe in something. That I have tons of fear and anxiety that I'm dealing with on a daily basis. That family is number one, although even my family know that everything about family is around EO. So if there was a trip, again, we leave after forum and we'll come back, before the next one. Even my 8 years old know that there's something called EO, and it's a magical something that makes daddy happy.
Yeah.
That I am a very proud Israeli, which is not always easy. That after October 7, I stopped defending the need to justify anything about Israel. Something changed about me. It was an existential week, a fear of existential kind of us as Israelis, as Jews in general, that as long as I can contribute, I'll stay in EO. As long as I can, provide value to the members and to the people around me, EO will be part of my life, and I will continue to solicit everybody to be part of it.
It's been a great conversation. Thank you for doing this.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.